Good evening, meteorologist Bob Acanfrio with today's tropical update for Tuesday, August 21st, 2012. Well, all eyes are on Tropical Storm Isaac. Tropical Storm Isaac was declared at 5 p.m. Today. All eyes have been on this storm the last few days. If you've been following me on Facebook or on weatherbunker.com, I've been telling you where I would think this storm may be headed, and really all along, even about 2 to 3 days out, my eyes really were focused on the Florida area as possible, won't be the first landfall if it makes it across the islands, but as a possible focusing point for the United States. Everybody was comparing this to Irene of last year, almost the same type of track, and it is almost in the beginning stages here. But I kept saying this is going to be west of Irene. You could just see the way the pattern is set up. It's not going to be as far east as Irene was, thus putting possibly Florida into play, maybe even the northern Gulf Coast into play. Then again, it could slip just east of Florida as well. But anywhere in that Florida area seems to be where I think this was going a few days ago, and I'm still kind of sticking with that right now. And as we've seen the National Hurricane Center track come together the last day, it's kind of headed towards there as well. So anyway, let's just go through. This is the current advisory, 40 miles per hour, west at 17. And here's the current track. Takes it through the northern Lesser Antilles, northern Antilles here as a tropical storm, probably, around 50, 55 miles per hour. It's going to go south of Puerto Rico as a possible, getting close to hurricane strength. This is official from the National Hurricane Center. Should go far enough south of Puerto Rico where you should just be under tropical storm conditions. And then from there, the track starts bending as it feels our weakness in the subtropical Bermuda High here. And then where does it go? Does it stay south of the islands and thus would strengthen even more? Does it move across the islands and weakens? Does it move across the Dominican Republic here? Does it take the eastern extent here and really weaken it, and then we'll see what we have left as it moves up this way? I'm pretty much with the National Hurricane Center on this one right now as far as track goes. This could even slip more like this way even right now. Again, I'm going to show you the models, and these models, especially out in this, I call this the question mark area, way out in here, they're going to waver around. We've seen them shift right, left. They're going to keep moving until we really get a beat on this system. We get some Hurricane Hunter flights in there. We get some G4 upper air data, which they're going to be flying, I believe it's Thursday afternoon, and we'll get some upper air data fed into the model. So once we get this moving, another thing is this storm's really going to start slowing down here. And that's another thing with these models. Speed is all over the place. I'm going to show you 3 different models and the different timing of it. And that's going to have a lot to do with, where this ends up hooking up here. Some of the faster models, like the Canadian model, really hook it east here quickly. And then we have the Euro, which is one of the slower models, just kind of lollygags it out this way and into the Gulf. And, of course, it could be a monster storm if that happens. So as far as intensity goes out in this area of the forecast, it's all going to depend on land interaction. Also, we've noticed the intensity models really coming down on the intensity forecast as it moves into the Caribbean here. The Hurricane Center still has it a hurricane by about Thursday, but some of the intensity models not as excited as they once were, and this could be having a lot to do with a lot of that dry air still. Although this system's big. I mean, it has a big envelope of circulation, and I think once it gets going, we really could see a hurricane out in here, but we'll have to see. Maybe that dry air is going to play with it more and it never really gets going. It's very possible, but again, the more southern route this takes, I believe the stronger this system's going to be. All right, so here we go. Let's look at the visible before it fades here. And you saw, it's interesting, as these storms get themselves together, they kind of do a little wobble. And this afternoon, it looks like the deepest convection, it kind of wanted to run from it, and it made a little wobble to the north quickly. Now it's resuming that westward track, and it's starting to cover the center of circulation here with some deeper convection. And we'll see if this is going to continue tonight and possibly get this system to strengthen. But you can just see the large circulation in this system. So once it really could get this dry air out of it, it could be all systems go. And that's why this This is really a system you really want to watch out for down the road because the potential is there. It has a lot of potential to be a pretty big hurricane here. If we put a little color on here, you can see there's the colder cloud top starting to try to get around that center. Now, will it maintain itself through the night? We'll have to see. It could be waxing and waning again, and we might see that center pop out again. But for now, it looks like it's under a little bit of a strengthening mode here, and we'll see again if that continues. Just looking at the bigger picture, I always like to put this on here, the big water vapor loop, just to see what we have. We have a tut feature here near Cuba. And this is always in a good spot for these systems. When we're on the right side of this tut feature, we get anticyclonic flow here to its east here. And you can see just by looking at the clouds fanning this way, you can see nice anticyclone trying to build. We saw today a little displacement of the anticyclone to the west of our system. So we were getting a little bit of northeasterly shear. That looks like it's starting to abate just a little bit here, as you can see, especially this banding off to the north here starting to develop. So we could be really under a little bit of a strengthening mode here, which wouldn't bode too well for the northern lesser Antilles here. And they're really going to have to watch out for this system as a possibly strengthening tropical storm, or maybe even getting close to hurricane strength, although probably be a strong tropical storm here. So again, upper tut here, and then our trough here along the east coast. And this is going to be the feature to watch here, whereas this, when it makes the turn. This trough that's here now is actually going to lift out a little bit this weekend, and then a reinforcing shot's going to come down early next week, and that's really what's going to make this go. Now, again, if this storm stays a little weaker, does it go a little west, and then finally when it gets down in here, does it get into the Gulf? That's what the Euro is saying, and we'll really have to watch that here in the next few days and see once it gets into the Caribbean where it wants to go. But that's the setup right now, and that's what we'll be watching. Looking at the shear here, you can see upper cyclone over our system. There's our tut feature. There's our trough. And again, to the right side of this tut, it's in a nice spot for strengthening. The ship's model maintains about 5, 10, 15 knots of shear. Not bad. Again, I think the intensity models are a little down on it the runs today, maybe because, and when I mean down on it, it's not exploding it like close to a Cat 3. Now we're mostly in that Cat 1. And it could be basically that drier air, not really getting, I can't see too much shear really hampering this too much. So we'll have to really see. It's a intensity forecast could go either way here. We could see, up to a Cat 2 here as it gets near Cuba and the Dominican Republic, or as low as a tropical storm. That's how these intensity forecasts are off. And again, looking at our steering features, west it goes for the next few days, and then it's going to watch out. This is our first trough here, and then there'll be a reinforcing shot early next week, and that's going to erode. When they say eroding, you're going to hear this. It's going to erode the western extent of the subtropical ridge. Here's subtropical ridge, subtropical high, and it's going to be this erosion here on this western extent that's going to really see how far east or west this goes. And that's what we're going to be watching here. Okay, model runs here. First, we're going to start off with the GFS ensemble models. If anybody was looking at this yesterday, the operational was still about the same, but all the ensemble models were east of Florida. While today's 12Z runs, now it's kind of coinciding with the operational, and they've kind of shifted west. So now we got that equal distribution here, anywhere from Louisiana all the way to North Carolina. Wow, great, right? And the white line's the operational run, which you'll see everybody kind of show and say, oh my God, the Republican National Convention is going to get bombed. Well, and that's what everybody's looking at. But these are all the individual models here. So we've seen a shift west with the GFS today. And again, this is 7 to 10 days out. This is going to shift back and forth in this area. So let's not get so excited with each model. But we got to look for trends. And today's trend was moving west. So we'll have to see if that continues. And again, here's the operational. This is now on the 29th. So right in the middle of the convention and a hurricane near Tampa. Could you just imagine if this happens? But that's what the GFS is showing as we speak for the 29th in the morning. So that's what we have there. Euro model. Here's the ensemble Euro models. Everything basically now into the Gulf of Mexico here, Eastern Gulf. And if we look at the operational run, here it is, bearing down on the northern Gulf Coast as a very strong hurricane. And again, that's what the Euro has today. The Euro's been the most western model, and it even moved a little west today, showing stronger high pressure here over the mid-Atlantic states. And now we have the eastern extent. I'm going to show you west, I'm going to show you east. Here's eastern extent. This is the Canadian model. Now the Canadian model has moved a little west today, but not as far as west as the GFS and the Euro, but still now east of Florida as a strong hurricane. So you see the differences here. Then we have the UK Met model. This is the ensemble UK Met model, almost looking like the GFS model. It again shifted a little west today. So we saw everybody shift west today. And again, dancing off the islands. And this is going to be interesting. This system, you've seen these systems move across these islands, and they like to bounce around and can really throw the track off. And things could get very interesting if it takes what I call the island hopper approach. I remember I talked about that a few days ago, and everything gets interesting when this happens. So this is going to be a very interesting storm to forecast. Some 18Z early run models. Again, that same kind of track, pointing towards Florida. And then intensity models, again, these were kind of starting to get close to this category 3 range a few days ago, and they've since kind of slid down more into that category 1 range. So we've seen that in the intensity forecasting. Again, intensity forecasting is about as hard as it comes. So again, we could be looking at a category 2 or as low as a tropical storm in the Caribbean. Can fluctuate either way. And then, of course, we'll have to take into consideration land interaction as well. And, of course, not to beat a dead horse here, but everybody knows the heat content very high here in the Caribbean. It's only going to get higher. This is where we are now, increasingly. And, again, if this thing slips south of Cuba, the hottest and most volatile waters around, and, you know, we don't want to see this thing come through the channel as a strengthening hurricane. But, again, watch and wait. If you're living across the Gulf Coast states, Florida, East Coast, you should be prepared for the hurricane season by now. And if not, this is probably a good time to really look over your preparations. And because here we are, this is going to be our first, possibly our first landfalling U.S. threat in a while. And maybe some people are a little complacent. But let's not be. Let's get prepared now. We have time. This is about 7 to 10 days away if it happens to make landfall across the United States. That's it for tonight. Thanks for listening. I'll see you all tomorrow.